Hi everyone, I'm Davis from Floppin' Crappie TV, and today I'm going to show you how to tie a double jig crappie rig setup for jigging crappie in a bunch of different vertical patterns, some casting patterns. The first step obviously is to get two different jig heads here. I got a marabou jig head there, I got a plain jig head on the top, and then I'm using a 9-foot ultralight crappie pole. This is a Crappie Hunter by Shakespeare. And I'm using 6-pound monofilament line. So the first thing I'm going to do is get into how to actually tie one of these rigs up, and then we're going to go to the lake and show you how to catch some crappie with them. Okay, so there we go. We're going to thread that through first. And you're going to want to pull about, I don't know, however the deep you want the jigs separated. So I got about 1.5 feet pulled out right now. So now we're going to take our second jig. You're just going to leave that jig on the line like that right now. Second jig, we're going to run our tag end through the second jig, like that. And now you can tie one of 2 knots. I prefer the improved clinch knot, just something I've always tied on these. Some people tie the polymer knot. I don't think I'm going to be able to do the polymer knot because the eye loop is so small for the 50-pound braided. So I'm just going to do the improved clinch knot. All you do is pinch the line between your middle finger and twist the tag end around the main line going back to the rod tip about 5 or 6 times. Like that. And now you got twisted part of the line right here. You still got your loop open with your middle finger. And you're going to take the line, the tag end of the line, you're going to bring it back through that loop, and then you create this other loop right here by my index finger. You're going to take the tag end and bring it back through that loop. You just pull it tight and pull the line from the rod tip going to the rod tip tight, and it kind of looks like that. And then you just pinch the top of it and slide it down to the top, to the jig head. And that's our first knot that we are tying. Okay, the second one is more of a, the second knot we're going to tie for the jig head further up on the line is a dropper loop. So you're going to start, depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start by holding the jig in my left hand. I'm going to pinch the line together, both the tag end and the line coming back to the rod. I'm going to bring out about, I don't know, 6 inches or so. Keep it pinched together with my right hand. And then I'm going to pinch the line from the jig head eye loop and move out about 2 inches. You want it dangling a little bit like that. And you're going to want to flip it over and under this part of the line, okay? So you're just going to want to flip the jig head over like that, but you're going to want to do it 3 or 4 times. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it 4, so do it 3 times like that. Now the trick is you got to leave a big enough loop on this side, which is my left hand, to bring the jig head back through. Bring the jig head back through that loop. So there's a loop, and I'm going to bring the jig head back through like that. And I'm bringing the loop all the way over the top of that jig head like that, okay? And then I'm just going to pull the loop up both the lines, both the tag end and the line going back to the rod. It's going to go like that. And then you're going to grab both ends, the tag end and the rod end of the line, above the loop and pull tight, and pull the jig head away from each other. And that is going to create a little dropper loop, allows it to hang free. The first method of how to tie one of these. So now you have your dropper loop jig head tied on, and then about 12 inches of line, and then your second jig, which is heavier than your top jig. Okay, that's the first method of how to tie this double rig crappie jig setup. We're gonna go to the second method right now. Okay, the second method starts again with the smaller jig head going on the line first, and you're gonna start the same way. You're gonna put the line through the jig head eye hole like that. Now I'm using 6-pound mono because this knot, you got to double back through the eyelet of the jig head, and that 50-pound braid won't fit. So you're going to pull this through the eyelet, and then you're going to take the tag end of the line and bring it back through the jig head eye loop. Now the key here, this is going to create a loop on one side of the jig head, and the key here is to make that loop the same distance that you want to tie your jigs apart, okay? So we need to pull out a little more line to actually make this work. So I'm going to grab the tag end, I'm going to put my thumb or my finger through the loop, pull out a heck of a lot more line here. All right, so now we have our jig head with both the rod end and the tag end of the line running through it. The next step is you're going to pinch the loop on the one side and take the tag end and the rod end of the line on the other side of the jig, and you're going to tie a simple granny knot. You're going to go around with the loop, go underneath. You're going to put the loop that was on the right side of it, and you're going to put the loop in between this newly created loop right here above the jig. If I can get it. There we go. Now you don't want to pull tight. This is very similar to how a drop shot is tied for bass. So you got it like that. You got the loop now on the left side, tag end and the rod end of the line on the right side, and you got a big loop with the jig in the middle. Now we're going to take the jig, and with the loop on the left side now, we're going to put the jig through that loop and pull over the top of the jig head. Now I'm still holding the tag end and the rod end of the line on this side. Now when it gets over the top of that jig head, you're going to start to pull tight. Now eventually here, you don't want it to be like a dropper loop. You want it to be tight to the jig head. So what we're going to do is pull individually the tag end of the line, which is this one right here. Pull that tight slowly, and once that loop gets over the top of the jig head, I'm going to grab the rod end of the line and pull that one tight, and it's going to slowly tighten up on that jig head. Slowly tighten up on that jig head, just like so. Okay, now I only left about 9-10 inches of line below it, but it's the same concept here. This is going to be the top of my line going back to my rod, this line right here. This line going down here is going to go to this jig head now. Okay, so now that we have our first jig head tied up the line for the second method, showing more of a drop shot knot, we are going to tie our second jig below it with the tag end of the line. And again, I'm just going to simply use you can use either the improved clinch knot or a polymer knot. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use the improved clinch knot again. And pinch it down all the way to the jig head. Just like that. And there you go. You have your double jig crappie rig set up. Welcome back to the lake, everybody. So now that I showed you how to tie that double rig crappie jig setup on some ultralight tackle, we're actually on the lake right now. We are going for crappie. And those might be some crappie right there. I think that might be some crappie. Right there, big pile. But we gotta make sure that the jig is effective. Otherwise, what's the point in doing a how-to and showing you how to tie all that if you can't actually catch fish on it? So that's what we're gonna do right now. Stick with us. All right, so now that we found a spot, time to put this double jig crappie rig in action. I'm actually throwing over some, this is an edge of a weed line, and there's some brush piles patched in between here. But I'm going to be casting onto some of these brush piles and then dragging it off the weed line through the brush pile and out to deeper water. That's where I've been marking them. I'm at about 18 feet right now. I've been marking them about 13 to 16 feet. Let's just say that. So we'll let it sink to where I think it's gonna be 15, 16 feet. Oh, there he is. Oh, there he was. There he was. Casting out, I'm letting it sit down and drop down to about that depth that I think it is. Then I'm slowly gonna just kind of jig it back in. It's not a true vertical jig pattern. It's more like if you're drifting for walleye or something like that. I mean, I'm not really drifting. I'm gonna try to keep my boat as still as possible next to these buoys. But the basic concept of having these two jigs is that you can fish two different depths because your jigs are, you know, a foot or 2 feet apart, however many feet you got them apart. And also you can fish two different colored lures. So right now I got the top one, which is my lighter jig, baby blue tube with, it's like a bubble gum and white tail, and then the bottom jig is kind of like it's not quite a Marlboro jig, but it's tipped with a all black and neon tailed. There we go. There we go. Ooh, that's a good crappie too. That's a real good crappie. Ooh, flopped out. Weed line, there's another fish. That feels like a good one too. Another good crappie. Holy smokes, I'm in a good school right now. Got him on the bottom jig. Double jig crappie rig setup. Catch you some nice crappie. Gives you that versatility of depth. Use it however you want, but it's a great trick to catch some nice crappie. We'll see you next time.